Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Magic 2015. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth. I'm with Zach Hill, and we are underway in the second round. This is, of course, M15 draft, and we've got a little bit of a fight here, Zach. We've got Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa, the Hall of Famer, 9 Pro Tour top 8s to his name, just one of the greats, playing against his countryman, also from Brazil, Willy Edel, who has 4 Pro Tour top 8s, looking for his 5th. Has been on a lot of people's ballots for Hall of Fame. We can only speculate at this point, but maybe has a chance to get in there too.
Yeah, and definitely a top 8 at this tournament, I think, would cement Willy in the Hall of Fame vote for sure. Right now, he's on the cusp on a lot of people's minds. PV not having the most solid season. I think he has 26 points this year, coming right out the gates with a Borderland Marauder. But another finish here, not that PV needs to add to his legacy, but it would certainly, I think, renew him in the contemporary conversation for best active player if he was able to put up a top 8 here.
Yeah, I think that, by his standards, not a season that he's super happy with, but he has recently finished school, and maybe we'll have some more time. Here's Kinsvale Skirmisher to add to the board. Sungrace Pegasus plus the Marauder, get in there.
Wow.
5 damage and a full curve out here for PV, and that's it. That was game 1.
I mean, a ridiculous start
Holy
for PV there.
smokes.
One of the most white-red aggro, and we see Willy with white-green, but just never able to get a white mana.
Yeah, did we even see that? Wow. All right, so PV wins the first game, and we'll be back after these messages.
Hunt Bigger Game. Magic 2015 is now available on Magic Online. Start your hunt by downloading the new Magic Online client at www.mtgo.com. You've watched the Pro Tour. How about playing on the Pro Tour? Qualifiers for Pro Tour Cons of Tarkir are going on now around the world, with winners earning an invitation and airfare to Honolulu, Hawaii in October. Visit wizards.com/PTQ for more information.
All right, back down in the feature match area here in Portland, and I made the mistake of blinking during that first game, and it was over.
Well, we saw 2-drop, 3-drop on turn 4, 2 more 2-drops from Paulo. I mean, it was just one of the best possible starts you can get in the whole format.
All right, so why don't we jump over to one of our secondary feature match tables here. All right, so let's take a look here at, I believe we are looking at Frank Scarn versus Mark Tobias.
Yeah, I think so.
In our King of the Hill table. And this looks a little bit lopsided.
Yeah.
I have to say that the now tapped down Generator Servant facing down, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 creatures on the other side of the battlefield.
And a Living Totem, those creatures being used to power out more creatures. And wow, I mean, just
3,
a
4,
huge attack from Mark.
That's 10, that's 11. And round 2 is don't blink, you will miss it.
Well, one of the things we've been talking about is the speed of this format. Randy was talking to me last night about how he feels like if he doesn't cast a creature on turn 2, he's just not in the game. And I feel like that's a lot of what we're seeing. I mean, basically, if you stumble at all, like we saw Frank stall there on 3 lands, just not going to win the game, may not even be close.
Now, do you think that these games are indicative of the speed of this actual format? Let's take a look at one of our other side matches here. We'll get our camera set up there. But do you think that, I mean, these were, of course, exceptionally fast. But is this something that we're going to see a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Is the format really this fast, Zach? I mean, that was insane.
Our first match, went to 3 games, took a long time, but Ben's deck was kind of not awesome. I think the phenomenon we're seeing really is if you're able to set up your deck, one of these really, really powerful decks, the best decks are incredibly fast and have a great curve and can get through. But I don't think on average that's what we're likely to see all the time. I mean, you've just really got to be placed, fortunately, at your table to get something that good.
All right, let's take a look in at Sam Black. He is playing Ken Yukihiro right now. Both players sitting at 1-0 from our draft pod that we got to watch.
11.
All right, and right when we jump in here, we're going to jump right back over to our original match. We really haven't seen much from Willy Edel yet, only from Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa. Let's jump back to our primary match and catch the second game of action. See if Willy can put up a little bit more of a fight there. Paulo with the old 2-drop. Double 2-drop on turn 4 off of a full curve out makes things pretty rough. There we go, the base white deck from Willy Edel. Sungrace Pegasus hits the battlefield. Again, both players here are from Brazil. They know each other pretty well. Brazil's a big country, though. I don't think they live in the same city, so I don't know that they're, you know, hangout buddies, but they certainly have roll in the same circles.
And I believe they were on the same team for Pro Tour Charleston way back in the day. It was really PV's kind of big finish with Celso Zampere Jr., I believe, is their third.
All right, a couple of soldier tokens from Raise the Alarm here for Paulo. He's going to attack with both of them. That was on end step, so now he's got turn 3 to try to come up with something. And he does. Solid 3-drop here. And now it looks like Willy's decided to hold his Sungrace Pegasus back. He's also left up all of his mana here.
Yeah, this Pegasus able to hold off both of those tokens. So, you know, it trades for 2, you know, deals the damage, gains a life. So, you know, it basically keeps even with the tokens, but it looks like he just wants to prioritize not taking damage right now.
Yeah, I think he's realized who the aggressor is in this matchup. And even though Willy might have a fairly aggressive deck, and right when I say that, he proves that he does not, in fact, have a pretty aggressive deck. Tireless Missionaries here is going to really help stabilize. I mean, it's pretty nice right here.
Right, and I can't help but wonder if that's actually some sideboard technology from Willy, just after getting blown out as hard as he did game 1, realizing that, you know, a 2-3 blocker really can hold off a lot of PV's threats, and that 3 life could really matter as he attempts to stabilize in the late game.
In the meantime, Paulo plays his land first, pre-combat, which he doesn't normally do, and now battles with everybody. So Willy's going to have to consider Sanctified Charge here as a possibility and try his best to play around it. You see him give a little head shake there because there's not a lot of great play around it here from that card.
And that's one of the things, you know, there's a point of view that basically says, like, oh, you know, there's diminishing returns on Sanctified Charge. You just kind of want to cast 1. But the thing is, like, you could just start chaining those together on turn 5. There's just not a lot your opponent can do about it.
No, that was brutal. He took 10 that hit. He gets to keep all of his creatures even through the block here. And this could be a quick one. Willy is just being overwhelmed here by Paulo.
Hear you. I mean, yeah, and Paulo, I think, is just going to sit and change Sanctified Charges.
I think you're right. I think is that a preeminent captain there for Willy Edel? He's got first strike. You know, you'd think that would help in a situation like this, but I don't know that it will.
Now, Willy does have Devouring Light and the mana untapped to cast it. That could be big. Able to take out that Rough Rider or the Midnight Guard, hopefully survive this attack, maybe being able to pick off you know, one of those tokens with the first strike on the captain. But, yeah, just not a whole lot from Willy. Willy's got a Sanctified Charge of his own, but without a board flooded with permanents, just not a lot that card can accomplish.
This is going to be interesting to see how Paulo wants to take this. I mean, he's still in a pretty good position with Sanctified Charge, even through Devouring Light.
You can also, like, just attack with Midnight Guard, see what happens. He wants to leave open Ephemeral Shields, I think, to protect his creatures, but, I mean, you've got to attack with everything if you're going to cast Charge. So I think he's just trying to figure out, like, how bad of a spot does he have Willy in right now, and how necessary is it for him to commit?
Yeah, Willy's still not quite low enough on life here with 2 blockers that Paulo can just confidently send in the team and kind of not worry about it. He's got to think this thing through, and he does decide the whole team's coming in. Willy, of course, expected this and makes, well, you'd probably call these pretty much the obvious blocks here, but there it is, Sanctified Charge number 2. We talked about this while we were watching Ben Stark draft. I said I thought people were underrating it. He took it very highly, and here's Paulo's second, and you can see why and how good it can be in the right deck.
Yeah, if Willy was able to block one of those soldiers with Preeminent Captain, he'd be able to pick it off. But I think he's saying, okay, I need to absorb 5 damage. He can Devouring Light the Midnight Guard to preserve his life total, and then cast Constricting Sliver on Paulo's remaining creature and make some attempt to stabilize.
I mean, wouldn't the soldier still just trade for the Preeminent Captain anyway?
It would trade. I mean, you could get it off the board, but I think you're right that like you aren't going to care about the 1/1 soldier token after your opponent has used 2 Sanctified charges.
Right, okay. So here's Devouring Light. He's tapping his 2 creatures plus a land to use it. The real question is, can Willy survive this flood here and then start deploying stuff to get himself stabilized? That's the big question here for Willy, and he is under immense pressure.
So right now, if he doesn't block, he takes 4 from the guard, 3 from the token, putting him at 2. I think he's got to figure out, okay, what does he want to target with that Devouring Light? Does he want to keep his Pegasus alive, keep his captain alive, or preserve his life total? But it looks like he really values that Pegasus.
Maybe he has something, some type of way to augment it. Let's see what he's got.
When if he does cast Constricting Sliver on the Rough Rider, he stabilizes assuming Paulo has nothing.
Okay. I think that's the spot he's in, Zach. I think that Willy is on the assume my opponent has nothing plan here.
And I mean, we know Paulo has Ephemeral Shields. Oh, wow. What
is this a sliver for
play.
a sliver? Willy flippantly casts it to the side. Willy is going to be able. Oh,
yeah.
Whoa, a little pump fake there.
Yeah,
Willy gets on a wry smile, like I will block that.
Yeah, because right. If Paulo attacks with the soldier, it lets Willy block the soldier and actually stay alive, as opposed to having to chump the Midnight Guard.
Right now, Willy's super far behind. Oh, he's got another one though.
Oh my goodness!
Wow, and they both trigger because it gets the ability twice.
And just getting the token out for good instead of keeping the Midnight Guard hidden under the sliver. A big top deck for Willy.
Wow.
We
Double
didn't know
triggers
that.
for Constricting Sliver. We talked about this in between because this came up in the last match, and we wanted to confirm that, yes, they both get the trigger, and they did. Has Willy stabilized at 3 life here?
And just as we thought he did, there's that Thundering Giant.
And he's going to block with...
Oh,
is that
my
Ephemeral
goodness.
Shields too? Goodness sakes. No mercy here. These 2 countrymen going at it, and PV takes down the match.
Wow.
Willy did the best he could to stabilize the board, hanging on by a thread. The double Constricting Sliver looked like it might do it, but Paulo had just enough tricks to get through for the win.
Yeah, that Thundering Giant was devastating.
Yeah. I was waiting for it, Zach. It was, though. And the Ephemeral Shields for the rub-ins, too. That is brutal.
Yeah,
Man, that was
absolutely.
nasty.
Paulo's deck looks very, very good. About exactly what you want to be doing with White-Red in this format. Great curve, powerful tricks, and a good top end in case your opponent tries to stabilize.
All right, well, the good news about having such a quick match in our feature is it means we've got 3 others to choose from that are still very much underway. So you can see our cameras moving over to the Sam Black match. And we're going to be bringing you that once they're all set up. So that'll be fun. He's playing against Ken Yukihiro of Japan. And that is going to become our primary match. Getting the life totals punched in, cards in hand, all the information that we bring here to you on the Pro Tour stage. And here we are. So let's see what we're looking at here. Krenko's Enforcer, there's a Coral Barrier and the accompanying Squid token. Looks like Ken's got some type of Triplicate Spirits or something along those lines going. Yes, Triplicate Spirits it is. All right, so it's going to add 3 1/1s. Now, Zach, what is this? What is the token there that Ken has? I don't know if you saw it on the bottom part of his screen.
Yeah.
We'll have to get back to that main.
I cannot quite tell. It
Is it a
looks like
sliver?
it's a dragon token, I think, from the Broodmaster. Or no, that's a
Broodkeeper?
landmine from Goblin Kaboomist.
That's what it is. It's a landmine. I hadn't seen that token yet.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of landmines floating around, but I hadn't actually seen the token. That's cool.
I mean, a really flooded board on Yukihiro's side, just a Squid and Enforcer landmine doing a great job of holding off the 2-2 Intimidate. And, I mean, yeah, we see a Rabble Master, Triplicate Spirits.
Oh, no.
It's exactly, again, I mean, we've seen some powerful red-white decks.
It looks like Sam's a little stuck on mana here, potentially. That's 6 mana there for Yukihiro, and Sam Black's only on 4. He just passed a turn back. So now we're going to combat. A goblin gets made off of the Rabble Master.
And those goblins must attack, so
Yes.
Yukihiro trying to figure out, oh, man.
Wow, he doesn't have to attack with the Rabble Master, but he chooses to.
I think that's marked by honor on the Rabble
I believe
Master.
you're right. Yeah, it looks like it is because he did indicate that it was attacking, and it's not tapped here. So it's going to get the trigger from the goblins that are being sent in as well. The Kaboomist must have been a short-lived goblin.
I'm looking at Sam's hand on the viewer. He's got a lot of tricks. He's got Crowd's Favor, Hydra Surge, Peel from Reality. Thundering Giant, Blast Firebolt, and Soul of Phyrexia are going to make him require some more mana, but he can actually have a very effective combat this turn.
Speaking of effective, here's Peel from Reality by Sam Black.
Taking out the Rabble Master and letting him rebuy his wall.
Yeah, the no longer honorable Battle Master as well. That knocks that off. So Sam actually gets a card out of the exchange as well. And he's going to net a little bit more card advantage thanks to the Coral Barrier. He's going to get yet another Squid token when he replays it at some point.
Squid tokens.
Yep, Squid tokens. So Rabble Master hits the battlefield again so that Ken Yukihiro can keep the pressure going. Yukihiro looks like he's won game 1.
He's indicating he's making another squid. So Sam trying to stabilize, but not the easiest
Looks like
thing
he's
to
way
do.
behind here. I mean, you know, one of the big issues that you can see from this board state just very obviously are the 3 flying spirit tokens that Sam just doesn't have anything to do about right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, in his Kringo's Enforcer just playing defense, not really.
I'm
what you
assuming
want to be
Sam's
doing
not
with
at
that.
20. There we go. Now he's
Yeah.
down to 9 here, and yikes.
I mean, that said, you know, really what Yukihiro has going are those spirits. If, you know, Sam can Frostlinks one of them, Hydra Surge buys him a turn, you know, but the thing is, it's going to be hard for him to even get an offense down. I mean, he just, on 4 lands, even if he top decks a land, Thundering Giant, not very effective in this
No.
position. And
He's dead in 2 turns, Zach.
Yeah, yeah.
Down to 3, Sam Black goes. Yukihiro passes the turn back. I mean, unless Sam has like a Cone of Flame in his hand, he just drew the land that he could use to play it, but okay, he's got a Rummager going. He's going to have to find something.
Maybe he's trying to draw into Cone,
Yeah, he got past one.
and that's not it.
I couldn't see it. What was it?
Oh, it was just another mountain.
Okay.
So Frostlinks buys him a turn.
We'll buy him an entire turn.
He's
and
got
remember, with
Hydra Surge as well, I
the
think.
Goblin Rummager on the battlefield, you know, he's going to get to see quite a few cards, try to
Right.
find something to take care of. He could also just pick up a flyer like a Sungrace Pegasus. What is this?
That's a Paragon. So that
Paragon.
means that this
Oops.
attack is lethal in the air. Now, Sam has to Hydra Surge one of the tokens, still falling to 1. Big top deck for Yukihiro.
Just clinging here.
You
And
know-
it also means that Cone of Flame's not good enough anymore, is it?
Oh, right, because one of the tokens would survive. Yeah, that's
and he
huge.
doesn't have enough removal to use one on the Paragon of New Dawn, so
Yeah.
tough spot. And we're going to see a hand extension here. Sam Black falls 2 games to 0 to Ken Yukihiro of Japan. He's going to improve to 2-0 here. Both of these players had won their first match, so Sam's 1-1, Ken's 2-0 in that pod. And that was also, both of these players came out of the original draft pod that we watched both Ben Stark and Sam Black himself draft their decks from. So why don't we jump over to another feature match table. Looks like we've only got 1 left now. And it is Frank Skarin versus Mark Tobias. Mark is from Germany. Frank's from the United States. Mark's only played in 1 other PT. He went 7-9. It was in Philly. But he's played a lot of GPs. So he's an experienced Magic player, just not quite as much at the Pro Tour level yet.
And really, 7 and 9, you're looking at sub 50%, but that means he made day 2 on his first Pro Tour. It's not an easy thing to do.
Mark's played 25 GPs, so. Yeah, now, but speaking of GPs, Frank Scarron is an excellent GP player as well with a big win percentage, and we see Ornithopter on the battlefield here.
Ornithopter?
Yes, Frank Scarron is playing Ornithopter. Now, if there's ever been a deck for it, these are the colors you would expect to see them in, right?
Right, exactly.
You would expect maybe some wild mongrels.
Yeah, you got the junkyard dog, the scrapyard
Junkyard dog.
You got that. You got Ensoul Artifact,
Aeronaut Tinker,
Shrapnel Blast. If you want to go that deep.
Yeah, and to be honest, in order to justify putting an Ornithopter in the deck, I would expect all of those in Frank Scarron's list here.
Maybe he has an Illusory Angel, too, that he can combo out kind of on turn 3.
I want all of that.
Yeah, right. I need a lot to play 0 mana, 0/2 flyer in my deck. But something tells me that if Frank Scarron is playing the card, it's probably good in his deck.
Yeah, I agree. So is that a Goblin Rabble Master again here, Zach? It is, right? Those things are just everywhere at our feature match tables. What a great card, though. That thing is super annoying. Unfortunately, he just had to run the token into the species there. So he's not really getting ahead with it right now. That Ornithopter not doing a lot of work either.
Not going to fly over for 0 points of damage.
No.
Rabble Master might wind up being one of the defining cards of this tournament. I have heard a lot of whispers about it in Constructed.
Oh, interesting.
We've seen it all over the feature match table Unlimited, where it's done some decisive work. I think that card is maybe a little bit underappreciated of the M15 cards. Not that many people talking about it once the set was previewed, but it does a lot of work.
I agree with you. You've named 16 underrated cards so far on the broadcast, and this is the one I am on board with.
You actually believe that it's underrated?
No, I think like different degrees, but I think this one really is a little under the radar for how powerful it is. I've had the misfortune of playing against it multiple times. Is this restock from Mark Tobias? Yes, it is.
He's got not a lot in his hand. Forged Devil with essentially no targets, but let's see what he's got in his graveyard, because restock is big game. Frank just sitting there kind of being disappointed. It's like, yep, something very bad is about to happen to me.
Yep.
Okay, so Rabble Master is the unfortunate recipient of a lot of electricity, and now Invasive Species gets to start battling, and that thing's nice. I mean, he's going to get to hit, empty board here, just gets to keep battling. 3 damage adds up pretty quickly, and your opponent's only at 10. This could go quickly.
Yeah, and it looks like Tobias got back a Curd Chieftain, which is probably the best red-green card. And, I mean, Restock just turned the game around.
Wow, and there it is, Curd Chieftain, with conveniently just enough mana to activate it, but no, it will not resolve.
Yeah, it's a big dissipate from Frank. I thought he just top-decked a blank by his body language, so doing a good job of selling that he didn't have very much, but still.
Because I think that Mark knows that if he had that dissipate when he cast the Restock, he would have snapped that off instead.
Yep. Again, Ornithopter not playing very admirable defense here.
No, Ornithopter has not done good work in this game. Again, we're assuming that he's got a lot of things that really require artifacts in order to run it. But here comes Invasive Species crashing in again.
Sure.
And there's a Carnivorous Moss Beast that Frank Scarron's like, yeah.
Sure.
So here we are at the Pro Tour, and we've got Ornithopter facing down Carnivorous Moss Beast. Welcome.
Carnivorous Moss Beast, an actual title, not an unglued card.
No, that's a real one.
I mean, the card is about your textbook definition of slow, but once it gets going, I mean, it is hard to deal with.
Look, if you want inevitability in the slowest possible way, Carnivorous Moss Beast is your guy.
That moss just creeping up the battlefield.
Yep.
All right, we've got some synergy.
Oh, man. Here we go.
Aeronaut Tinker, unfortunately, doesn't do a good job in battle against the 3/3 Invasive Species, so it's not going to do a lot, even though it does have flying right now.
And, a 2/3 flyer for 3, a great rate, but not necessarily good. That's not what you're playing Ornithopter for in this deck.
This would be on the low end of that. Vineweft also hitting the battlefield here. And Ornithopter takes one for the team, but the carnivorous moss beast that Frank Scarn had bounced is now back on the battlefield and threatening lethal. And that's going to do it. Scarn, though, was ahead one game there. So we're actually going to get a game 3 out of Mark Tobias versus Frank Scarn.
And I'm actually really excited to see game 3. I mean, when we came in, there was not really a whole lot going there. And I want to see what this blue-red artifact deck is able to do.
Okay, so welcome back to the booth, guys. So I am assuming we're going to be able to bring you that third game.
I should hope so.
Yeah, I'd like to see that because that was interesting. That's the. I mean, we saw Ornithopter versus Carnivorous Moss Beast. I did not think that I would see that at the Pro Tour. So I think that we can probably stay down on the in the feature match area as much as you want to see us talk, and we can watch some more actual Magic being played here. Also, I see a Brian Kibler down there now. What are they doing? That they're not playing. They were not in the feature match area. Oh, they must be doing a special segment. Do you see who's standing next to Brian Kibler?
I don't. Oh, is that our coverage? Oh, that's Nate.
That's Nate Holt. And
I'm very eager to figure out.
In the shadow of Nate Holt is Sean Kornhauser. So it's a little unintentional, but maybe a little preview from Walk the Plains. Who knows? But this is, you can see Sean there with the camera. He's the other half of Walking the Plains. So if you're a fan of the video series, he's the one who does all the production work. He does the editing, and him and Nate work together to come up with the plan and to do the stuff. It's really great to see you get a chance to see them there.
I wonder if this is some sort of gag for Brian's hand shuffling. You know, they're like sitting there staring at him. You see Craig in there tight with the picture.
Now, Craig is our Pro Tour photographer. You can get a look at him, too. He's been working on the Pro Tour forever. And here's back on our main match as our players are finishing up sideboarding.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what, I mean, Frank, you know, thing that happens a lot of the time in Limited is that, you know, you sideboard because you think your opponent's deck looks one way after game 1, but in game 2, either because they've sideboarded or because you just see more of the deck, you have to change your deck up again for game 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I wasn't coming back from that one.
Understatement by Frank Scarn there.
Getting your only guy off the board.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe that Moss Beast was a sideboard card. If you, like, think the game's going to go super long in a stall, you just want to have a late-game trump. You know, a thing that it's easy to forget, like when you're looking at a new, semi-new format like Magic 2015, is that just because some cards are in the abstract better than other cards or higher picks than other cards, doesn't mean that, you know, later picks can be really powerful role players.
Sure.
And
yeah, I think the thing about like the Moss Beast in particular is it's a 4/5 for 6, which isn't exciting, but that's pretty serviceable, right? Like, I mean, you can play that card. Now, the activated ability is depressing. Let's just be honest, right? You pay 7 mana, and for all of that effort, you get a +1/+1 counter. But that's not really that relevant, right? Like, if you need a 4/5 or you just need a big 6-drop to help shore up the game or get in, Carnivorous Moss Beast will be there for you and will serve that role.
he'll be there for you. It's like a pillow you can cuddle with.
Well, I mean, he is mossy.
A mossy pillow, yeah. But and the thing is, like, 7 mana for a 1/1 counter is obviously a really bad rate. But the
that
times that that's
obvious.
relevant.
I've seen some people pretty excited.
I'm very excited about a 7 mana for 1/1 counter.
I told him it was not a good rate.
But I mean, when you can either do that or do nothing, which is the case a lot of the time when you're bringing in a Moss Beast because you think the game is going to go long, you know, that can be relevant. He levels up to a 5/6. Suddenly he can block Siege Worm. He can block Glacial Crasher. So it's not exactly fast.
Now, you're not saying that Carnivorous Moss Beast is underrated, though, right?
I did not say
and
that.
far from devastating.
It is. I would be excited to see the circumstance where Carnivorous Moss Beast is devastating.
Good, I like it. All right, so we're underway here. Not a lot of action in the earliest of stages. But a Welkin turn's a good start for Frank Scarn. Let's see if there's a Forge Devil hiding for Mark Tobias. That would be pretty nasty.
And Scarn really turning the beat around with that second turn, Welkin turn. You know, it wasn't really apparently very aggressive that last match. We saw the game go long, didn't see him have a lot of permanence, but it looks like he's able to get pretty aggressive.
Jeez.
So I don't want to hear it.
restock makes this guy a lot better.
Yeah.
So is that Forest
You'd
and
have
3
Forest
red
there.
bombs?
Yeah, but Mark was lamenting the fact that 2 of his best cards just got put in the graveyard with Inferno Fist and the Kurd Chieftain. But Frank says, I don't want to hear it. You restocked him last time. Perfectly fair, I think, from both sides. And what's the follow-up play here for Frank?
I think Frank's got a tinker. I mean, a play that you could have taken was Inferno Fist the turn, attack for 4, leave a red up, so even if he tries to kill your turn, you can get the Wayfinder off the battlefield, but not really an ideal target for Inferno Fist. Frank opting to just develop his board.
Yeah, he's going to play Krenko's Enforcer.
Call, he says.
Yes.
Oh, that's Krenko's Enforcer. Okay, so he's also got an Aeronaut Tinker, but yeah, more evasion, probably better than less evasion at this point in the game.
I like the way you think, Zach.
I know that's shocking.
Yeah.
But the 2-3, you know, obviously the third point of toughness doesn't
Is this
matter.
a Rabble Master?
I think so.
Didn't Frank have the Rabble Master?
I just Rabble Masters all the time.
We just
man.
came from a match
Get me
where
with my own trick.
Kentaro had a Rabble Master,
Well,
Frank
yeah.
has one, and now Mark has one too. It's just getting very goblin-y down there.
It's interesting that he blocked the Goblin instead of the Satyr Wayfinder there. Just because the Goblin, you know, must attack as long as Rabble Master's on the battlefield. But you have to think that Frank is going to get the Rabble Master nice and dead with this Inferno Fist.
Does seem to be the idea, especially given that Mark is now tapped out. I think that, you know, a lot of times with Inferno Fist, you want to wait for the opening when your opponent doesn't have anything to interact with you so that you can make sure that it sticks and you get your value out of it. And he's just going to fire it off right now. Mark, he knew exactly what was going to happen there.
Frank, interestingly, playing defense. The thing is, do you really want to block the Wayfinder here when you have just you
So
up?
he would have had to attack with the Enforcer, which could have been blocked.
I see what you're
So
saying.
I think that he just wanted to make sure that he got it the way he wanted it with the board state of him having Enforcer and getting to use Inferno Fist to kill. It gives Mark some options on like, well, I guess I'll block then.
Yeah, you're right. And then you might have to use the fist before you actually get to deal 4 damage with a welcome turn.
Exactly.
Makes
so
sense.
the damage is the same. And there's the Forge Devil. He did have that in his hand, but he wanted to develop his board and make sure he hit his mana, but he does take out the turn now. And there's Invasive Species to pick up Forge Devil. So now Frank, unfortunately from Mark's side, Frank knows, but if it just makes Frank hold on to any 1 toughness creatures in his hand forever, that's pretty good for Mark.
Right, and the other thing Forge Devil does is can, you know, deal with a 2-3 after it's blocked a 2-2. I mean, that extra point of damage can, you know, just make blocking very difficult for Frank.
Right.
Mark is at 11 life, which
Yes.
is not the highest life total against a deck that's as aggressive as Frank's is.
All right, so here's Invasive Species number 2 being used in a pretty cool way. He returned a land to his hand, then used his land drop for the turn to play it, and effectively ramped a little bit. He got an extra land because he didn't have one in his hand to play. Then he used a Lightning Strike to kill a creature on Frank Scarn's side. So one of the many ways that you can use Invasive Species in kind of a creative, cool way. When you're stuck on lands, you can use it as a sort of a mana ramp spell.
And Mark's deck really does seem to be built to capitalize on invasive species. You see Forge Devil there, which you can pick up. You see Satyr Wayfinder. You see Shaman of Spring. All these cards would enter the battlefield abilities that are fine on their own, but are really powerful when you're able to reuse them.
There's the Aeronaut Tinkerer.
Good.
And the Void Snare is going to bounce that creature, the invasive species, back to Mark's hand. This is where you can fall behind. When you're missing land drops and still need to develop your board with invasive species, it can get a little awkward having to keep putting stuff back in your hand over and over again. But I do see that Mark drew his 5th land this turn. He's going to attack for 3 to drop Frank Scarn down to 11. And is this Forge Devil? Yeah, he's going to do it again. Play a land, return it, and then replay Forge Devil. So that's going to hit the Krenko's Enforcer for 2, killing it. Mark also takes 2 in that exchange, though, down to 7. So that is something that he has to consider here. The red deck has burn spells that can finish off if Frank Scarn can get close enough. But right now, he looks to be in a great spot with a 3-3 and a pair of 1/1s on defense, facing just a vanilla 2-3. No flying right now.
Now Frank can play Sacred Armory Inferno Fist to hit Mark for 4. because he'd have an artifact so Mark couldn't block. But Mark, with Lightning Strike, Titanic Growth in his hand, board full of permanents, able to threaten a lot of damage next turn. Oh, it looks like Lightning Strike was cast earlier. But so Charging Rhino still does have the Titanic Growth, a card that really can end the game next turn. I mean, Mark can attack for 11 damage.
What a tough spot for Frank here.
And because Frank is relatively close. If he was at a few more life points, he could just play the Armory, attack, pump it, or attack, play Inferno Fist, and just kill Mark in 2 attacks. So I mean, Frank is very close, but he's got to worry about just not dying right now.
Yeah, and he's very worried about it. He plays Inferno Fist, simply passes the turn back here.
Now, next turn, if he plays the Armory, he can attack for 4, sack Inferno Fist to deal Mark 1 more damage, and with his second land, pump exactly once, so he can deal 7 damage next turn.
But he is not. The problem is Frank is going to be forced to use Inferno Fist if Mark forces that issue with the Titanic Growth.
Exactly. And Frank's blocks here still are very awkward.
Yes. This attack, even with the Titanic Growth, is only for 10, and Frank's at 11. So I think that Mark is going to have to send in more than just those 2. And no, he's just going to attack with those.
So, I mean, Frank
Frank's like,
might get this one.
Yeah, he's like, whoa, don't have to play around that now.
Also, Mark's attack, conservative, not wanting to get 2 for 1, essentially, if he blocks, tries to Titanic Growth, and gets Inferno Fisted in response. But, I mean, that might have been exactly the sequence of plays that Frank needed to pull this one out.
Yeah, seriously, because the thing is, Frank can't actually 2 for 1 him unless he goes for the pump on one of his 1-1s.
All right, here we go.
But here it is. Pump it. Attack.
I mean, Frank just setting that up did exactly what he needed.
Yes, this is 5, and Inferno Fist would be 7. This could be the game.
Wow.
I didn't just rip it.
And that's it. Frank Scarn wins. He says, I didn't just rip it. Set that play up, buddy.
And Frank, I mean, doing exactly what he needed to do with the Inferno Fist pass. I mean, he had a lot of options there.
Yes.
And I mean, that was one of those situations where there were like 5 viable wrong plays and 1 right one. Frank made the right play. Mark did exactly what he needed to do, and Frank was paid off. We have seen some great Magic.
Yeah, welcome back to the booth, guys. Marshall Cycliffe here with Zach Hill. Some awesome stuff down there. Mark, so close, right? I mean, you could see he looked frustrated at the end there. Yeah. Tough loss to take. It's hard to imagine you're going to take 7 there without something like a Stoke the Flames or a burn spell of something like that. But pretty brutal stuff there. But he needed to send in at least 1 more of his creatures to try to at least threaten lethal in some way, because we saw how quickly Frank was like, no problem.
Right.
Because, he knows that he's not going to take more than 4 there without multiple spells, and he's not going to play around multiple spells. He's going to play around a Titanic Growth or a Stoke the Flames.
And I think it does have to be like specifically the Armory there, because it has to give the Tinkerer flying, deal a damage, and not tap him out so he still has the extra red for Inferno Fist. So, I mean, a confluence of variables there allowed Frank to win, but that was what he needed and pull out a real nail-biter.
The tiniest of margins there. I mean, that game was super, super tight. So we've seen a lot of great play, a lot of great stuff down in the feature match here. We still have a whole nother round to go here in our initial section, which is, of course, the draft. We're going to be playing Standard later in the day. But for now, Magic 2015 draft is where we're at. We're going to line up an interview with Frank Scarn right now. So Rashad's going to be down there, and we can have him ask some questions about how that match went for Frank. I mean, obviously, he's got to be happy with the result of it, but wow, that was close.
It was super close. I still want to see what that Ornithopter is doing. I wonder if he sided it out. I wonder if there were, some Ensoul artifacts or something that we weren't seeing.
All right,
pretty brilliant.
All right, so it looks like they're just about ready to head down or head for the interview right now. So why don't we head down to have a quick moment with Frank Scarn right now.
We're going to start there, but then you just talk to him. Hi, Rashad Miller here, and I'm here with Frank Scarn.
Hi.
And he is the king of the hill. And we don't have a crown for you, but for this interview, I'll let you hold on to Garrick. Is that okay?
Oh, sweet. This is definitely a king of the hill.
All right. So, a couple of people in the booth are wondering about Ornithopter.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell because I saw why Ornithopter's in your deck, and I want you to tell them why Ornithopter's in this deck.
Okay. Well, first of all, Illusory Angel is definitely the big one. Turn 3, just Ornithopter, Illusory Angel. There's really not many cards outside of like Stoke the Flames or Plummet that's going to get in the way of that. Also, I have 3 Scrapyard Mongrels. Turning that guy on is very crucial. And the big one is Military Intelligence. I love that card, love it so much. Against Chapin last round, it drew me like 5 cards, game 3. And I don't know, the card's just really versatile. I have like Ensoul Artifact and Shrapnel Blast on my sideboard. If I had maybe like 2 more artifacts, I'd probably be playing those also. But it just fuels the synergies of my deck. I also have like the Aeronaut Tinkerer to give it flying. Like my deck's like double Inferno Fist, Sacred Armory. Like there's just so many cards that work well with it.
All right, so let's talk to me a little bit about how you were able to set up that last play to win the game. Because I know it took a little bit of overzealousness maybe from Mark, but tell us how you kind of sequenced that.
Sure. I knew that I didn't need to play the Sacred Armory that turn. As long as I played it next turn, I'd have exactly enough for lethal. And I needed him to not force me to use my Inferno Fist. And I knew Titanic Growth was in his deck, and he actually had it in his hand. Because if he just attacks with everything there, I block a 1/1. He goes Titanic Growth. I have to use the Inferno Fist to kill the other 1/1 to not die. So I figured I just gotta hold this. Hopefully it makes him think I have another trick, and then he doesn't go for the Titanic Growth. And he did have it, and you saw him during that attack. So if he was thinking about it, in my head I was just don't attack with everything, because I just knew he had the Titanic Growth. So as soon as he just sent those 2 in, and I knew I would go to 5 if I didn't block, I was just no blocks, and I was just praying he didn't play a Netcaster Spider or something. So yeah, it was just concealing information, making him think that I was weaker than I was, and it worked, which is pretty awesome. And that's really what I love about Limited. As long as you know what you're playing around, there's a lot of little edges like that you can get.
Awesome. Well, this is the King of the Hill, Frank Scarron, 2-time GP winner. Maybe you can add a Pro Tour to the list. I'm Rashad Miller. I'm going to send it back to the booth.
Hey guys, welcome back. Great stuff from Frank. Echoed a lot of the things that we were thinking. Really interesting last play of the game there about do you attack with everything or not? And the answer is no. Now, the other answer is 3 times Scrapyard Mongrel. That starts to get Ornithopter up into the playable realm. For now, though, let's head back over to the news desk where Rich Hagan awaits. After that, we're going to have more Magic action here from Portland.
I'm not going to lie, this format is fast. My goodness me. Looking out, there's almost no one still playing out the back wall there. Let me give you some updates in terms of scores. So Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa wins the Battle of Brazil over Willy Edel. Paulo no at 2-0. It's been a while since he has had a 2-0 start at a Pro Tour, so well done to him. Adam Koska, the man who finished 9th place in a Pro Tour twice in a season, 2009, not been seen much since. Maybe that would do it to you if you finished 9th twice. He is at 2-0, defeating Adrian Nestico in that draft pod. Now we're still waiting for Kelvin Chu and Atakan Yelkavan of Turkey. And then Alexander Hain, he passes Christina Smith. Hain now 1-1. In our other feature match table that we're keeping an eye on, Ken Yukihiro defeats Sam Black. So Yukihiro has a 2-0 start. Black from Team Channel Fireball Pantheon now at 1-1. Andrew Cuneo has the 2-0 start. What a tough start for him, but he is at 2-0, having defeated Ben Stark last round. Now he defeats Patrick Dickman to go to 2-0. Dickman at 1-1. Sean Pottinger, well, he went down to Ben Stark, so Stark now off to the races at 1-1. And then Alexa Telerov, the Serbian, who's been on their national team 6 times at World Championships and World Magic Cups. He is underway. That means Eduardo dos Santos Vieira, sorry Brazilian fans, he loses out. He is at 0-2. Lots more results coming on. I can tell you, in fact, now that Atakan Yelkavan has defeated Kelvin Chu. And then what about our Player of the Year race? Reed Duke versus Jeremy Desani. Well, Desani in round 2, in what looked like a reasonably okay draft pod for him, he was up against Marco Santapadre, one of the Italian PTQ winners. I can tell you that Desani won that one by 2-0. He has not dropped a match. He has not dropped a game thus far. Early days, 2-0. Reed Duke, meanwhile, was also up against an Italian. This time it was Giacomo Fiorucci. And I can tell you that Reed Duke has opened his account. He lost to John Stern last round, but he takes down Giacomo Fiorucci there by 2-1, putting Duke at 1-1, Desani at 2-0 in our Player of the Year head-to-head. All right, let's talk a bit about World Magic Cup action. The World Magic Cup features 72 countries. Crazy. 72 captains will be known by the end of Sunday. Why don't we take a look at some of the races and some of the countries that already know their World Magic Cup champions. So let's take a look on the big board and see what we've got for you. So here are the best races. We picked out a dozen or so for you. So we begin with Australia and Justin Chung on 20 points. He was at 18, got a couple of points at the last weekend, the last possible moment at the Grand Prix in the Asia-Pacific region. That took him to 20. 20 is the number for silver, gives him a silver Pro Tour invite. He could have been here, but is not. So that means that Daniel Unwin and Patrick Robertson in particular on 9 points, they need now top 16 finishes to make that an interesting race. So top 16, you're looking at round about 11-5, 11-4-1. That's the best guess for the kind of record they might need. Meanwhile, Nectarios Nicolau, David Mines, Ty Soanes and Chester Swords, well, they're all about the top 8 before they can even contemplate overhauling Justin Chung. Now, Belgium is quite an interesting race because Nicolas van der Hallen leads this on 9 points. Moraine Leibert also has 9 points, but Van der Hallen leads on tie breaks. He cannot improve on that. He is not here this weekend. So that means that Grand Prix top 8 man Johan Verhulst on 3 points, and then Alexandra Darras, they have the chance by making the top 25 to overhaul Nicolas van der Hallen for the Belgian World Magic Cup captaincy. For Brazil, well, we've just seen them go head-to-head, and Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa defeated Willy Edel to go to 2-0. But Willy has a big lead. 11 points means that Paulo needs to begin by looking at the top 16. So those are the first 3 of our key races. Let's move on and show you what's up next. Well, Canada, what a show-stopping nation that is. They are on such a tear in World Magic right now. And Sean McLaren, your Pro Tour champion, on 52 points. He leads by a good old margin from Alexander Hayne and Jacob Wilson on 44. They would need to get into the top 16 to be in the mix there. Then John Stern on 38 points. He needs to make the top 8. Sam Tharmaratnam, well, it would be an incredible weekend for him if he became the World Magic Cup captain for Canada, because he would need to win Pro Tour Magic 2015 to do that, and have many other things go his way, featuring those 4 storied names above him in the standings. Germany is looking very interesting. I have to tell you, though, that there are now only 3 live players for that race, because both Kai Buddha and Lucas Tajak are not here this weekend. So they will not improve on 31 and 20 points. So Patrick Dickman on 40 points leads the race at the moment. We saw him lose to Andrew Cuneo this round, but Dickman is there on 40 points, a big leader over Christian Seibold, who, of course, won Grand Prix Barcelona with the Grafensteiner brothers earlier this year. Taral Severin would need a huge, huge finish. We're talking championship, and Dickman to have a terrible weekend. Now for Hungary, they of course are the World Magic Cup runners-up, the finalists against France last time around, only a top deck Rakdos return away from being the reigning champions. This time we know that Tamas will be your champion, but will it be Glied or will it be Naj? Only 1 point separates the 2 of them, and so they are going to be really thick in the mix, just going toe-to-toe, and they could yet end up on the same points, because up until you get into the top 25, it tiers up 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, and 6 points. Well, next is one of our biggest races of all, and this is the Italian race. Let's take a look. Well, we're tied at the moment with Andrea Mengucci, who of course was king of the hill for so many rounds at our last Pro Tour at Journey into Nix. He is tied with the 2011 Pro Tour champion in modern, from Philadelphia, Samuela Estrati. Then you have a handful of players with some pro points this season, headed by Manuel Cecilia, the two Lucas, Gianni and Rivali, and Marco Santapadre, who has his little footprint on the Player of the Year race because he has just lost to Jeremy Desani in round 2. And then all those zeros, those are the Italian PTQ winners, basically. A couple of Grand Prix top 8s as well in there, who are potentially, with a huge finish, we're talking final and winning the whole thing, can overhaul one of Mengucci or Estrati. All right, let's move on to our next trio of top races for the World Magic Cup. Let's see what we've got next. And we move on, and let's just take a moment to look at the list of players on that Japanese race. At the bottom of the list, needing essentially a miracle, like winning the whole thing and everyone else to fail, Tomoharu Saito. Ken Yukihiro is on 26 points. The 2006 Player of the Year, Shota Yasuoka, is tied with Yuki Ichikawa, top 8 Pro Tour this season, on 31. Makihito Mahara is on 34 points. That's your 2006 World Champion. And I would imagine he's a little bit nervous as we head towards our Hall of Fame announcement, which comes, by the way, at the start of our lunch break after round 3. You can find out whether Mihara makes it in, whether so many other great names become enshrined in the Magic Hall of Fame. He's on 34. You have the 2008 Player of the Year, Shuhei Nakamura, on 38. Kentaro Yamamoto is on 42. But leading the way right now, it's Yuya Watanabe. And the thing is, so many great players behind him, only by making the final can Watanabe be guaranteed of not being caught. So plenty to go at in that 8-way race for the Japanese leader in the Player of the Year race. Plenty of other countries already locked in, but let's show you some more that are not. Let's go all the way down to Singapore. Let's just go back for a moment if we can and take a look at Singapore and Slovakia. The Singapore race, Chapman Sims on coverage, of course, at a lot of Asia Pacific Grand Prix. He's on 18 points. Singapore, Kelvin Chiu is up on 23 points right now. So he has a decent lead. Top 25 for Chapman Sim is what he's looking to do. The Slovak race also features team coverage. This time the leader is Matej Zatlkaj, who many of you will know as a host of the European Grand Prix season. And then you have Even Flock, 4 points adrift right now, and that means top 25 is the baseline for Even Flock to get into the race. As for Robert Jurkovic, remember that Jurkovic and Flock were team world champions together in 2010. Jurkovic needs to go right the way to the top. Not even the final will be enough to take care of business for him. He needs to be the champion if he is also going to walk away with that World Magic Cup race. So that was Singapore and Slovakia. We'll move on. Let's see who's next in our great races in the World Magic Cup. And we are going to go to Spain next. And Spain, well, this is one of the great races. You see a full 10 names there on the Spanish leaderboard. Right now, Javier Dominguez has the lead for what it's worth. Carlos Morel, clearly his nearest challenger. And then you're right back to Juan Carlos Adabo Diaz on 10. Quite a lot of strength in depth in that list. I would like to talk to you about a gentleman called Tony Ramis Pascual. Now, a lot of you, if you just watch Pro Tour coverage and don't join us at the Grand Prix, may not know an awful lot about Tony Ramis Pascual. He's there on 9 points. He has 2 lifetime Grand Prix top 8s, but most significantly, his standard record is basically, literally, second to none. He is just absolutely astonishing. So around about 84% is his standard rate. So then you have Antonio Del Moral, Martin Scheinin, Carlos Fernandez Bayo, Omar Diaz, and then Juan Tala Aguillo. So all of those need very big finishes. But watch out for Tony Ramis Pascual, particularly in draft, because if he can get to standard, this is a guy who this season is round about 30-odd wins, 5 losses, and some IDs. He is astonishing. Now, what about Sweden? Joe Larsson's on 32 points, Dennis Rashid on 22, and then the Hall of Famer Olarada is on 15. Joe Larsson, it is his to lose, really. 10 points is a significant gap, and his lead over Rashid means that Rashid needs to look at the top 16 as a bare minimum. But Chinese Taipei, that has become a really good race. It wasn't until just last weekend. At that point, Su Qin Kuo was on 24, Hao Shanhuang was all the way down on 12. But what happened? Well, the last GP of the season, somebody had to win it, and Hao Shanhuang was that man, catapulting him up from 12 points to 20 points, only 4 adrift now of Su Qin Kuo, and that means that they are thick in the race to see which of those two great players will captain a team that is, of course, a World Magic Cup winning team from 2012 in Indianapolis. And that brings us to our final top race of the World Magic Cup, 72 races in all. Of course, we couldn't let you not look at the granddaddy of them all, the United States race. And it begins with Reed Duke on 70 points. He has much bigger fish to fry, let's be clear. He is locked toe-to-toe with Jeremy Desani for the Player of the Year. And if he takes care of that, you just know that he's going to be the World Magic Cup captain too. And then Owen Turtenwald, Josh Utter-Layton, you've got Players of the Year back-to-back, the last two chasing him. Tom Martell, a Pro Tour winner from Gatecrash. Patrick Chapin, your Journey into Knicks champion. You've got Sam Black, one of the great deck builders. Paul Rietzel, I wonder what he's thinking about Hall of Fame as that announcement rolls around. Will he make it in? Lots of people saying on social media that they were going to vote for Paul. We'll see what happens. The Rookie of the Year heir apparent, Jared Betcher, is there on 46 points. He can just about do it. And then those 44s, well, let's be honest. Ben Stark, Chris Vanel, Josh McLean, they need Reed Duke to have a stinker, and they need to win the whole thing. So realistically, Reed Duke's to lose. But those other names on the board have 24 Pro Tour top 8s between them. And if any one of them gets it into the top 8, we could still see that race live on Sunday. Phew. All right, there you go. 13 of the best World Magic Cup races. The players are gearing up towards the end of round 2. Still a few players playing in extra turns, a couple of extended matches. So why don't we show you our next part of Inside R&D. We're going to do it in color pie order, which means, if I've done my sums correctly, we're about to show you something about white.
In Magic 2015, every card has a story to tell. Let's meet a few of the Angels and Dejanis, the Life Gainers and the Life Takers in white.
White basically does two things. One, it's the army color. It's the color that has the most little tiny creatures, and it makes them all work together to build an army. And it's the defensive color. It's the color that has all the answers to protect yourselves so you can stall until you get the things you need to win.
I like the card Johnny Steadfast, but it's a little poignant because in the art he's wearing Elspeth's cloak, and so it's a memento of the friend he lost.
We'd just come off of another Ajani, and so we knew we needed something that was a little bit of a different angle. And the core set, because it has more Planeswalkers than normal, and because we were kind of telling this story about Garruk and about the Planeswalkers, we had a little bit of a theme running through of cards actually referencing other Planeswalkers in a way that we normally don't get the chance to. So the part of Johnny that really excites me is that second ability where he actually puts loyalty counters on your other Planeswalker. We made sure he only had single white in his mana cost so that that played really nicely into a deck where you might have a bunch of Planeswalkers.
Uncommon build-arounds are something we do for Limited to kind of give people direction and help them in their early picks to figure out what their deck's supposed to do. Johnny's Primate is an excellent example of this. It's a very simple and clean card. You gain life, it gets bigger, and when you have cards in set like Soulmender, it's really obvious, okay, turn 1 Soulmender, turn 2 a Johnny's Primate, 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, 6/6.
I like the card Selfless Cathar because it's from the first set I concepted, and I remember the moment sitting down, writing the art description, and trying to imagine what that art would look like, and then it came back and I was thrilled.
So the red-white deck in this format is supposed to be about auras. Heliod's Pilgrim is our way to make you want to draft more auras. One of the things that I was frustrated with later on in development was that there wasn't a white aura that was a removal spell at common that you could go tutor for. The problem is if you put something really strong, then it starts to get kind of oppressive if that all sits inside one color. So I went looking for something that was powerful enough you'd want to play it with the Pilgrim, but not so powerful that it would make people want to throw things if you had like 2 Pilgrims and 2 pacifisms or whatever.
Hushwing Gryph is a card we actually tried to create in M14. The card that's now imposing Sovereign actually started off as, we call him Torpor Orb Guy. The problem was that at that time, when we were working on Theros, Bestow actually worked slightly differently. The creatures came into play as creatures, and they turned into enchantments, and then kind of snapped onto creatures. Well, we realized all of a sudden, oh boy, this card is going to kind of nerf the entire mechanic of the next set. And so we pushed it off and said, well, we should really, we're a little worried about this, let's push it off. Of course, Bestow ended up changing. The rules for it changed a bit. But so then when we came to M15, we realized this was still a card we wanted to make. It's a card we wanted to see in Modern. And so we put it on a body that was a little different than the creature the first time, but still very interesting.
Slivers were a big part of M14. Aaron thought we're at the tail end of the standard that's going to have M14 in it. We should insert a few more slivers to really liven up what that deck is doing. Maybe give it a chance at becoming more of a constructed deck. Just give people, it's going to be our last chance for a little while to include slivers. And so we wanted to sprinkle them in. In Limited, you're not going to see a ton of the synergy, though some of them work really well together, like Constricting Sliver, which looks just kind of innocuous. It's an expensive Fiend Hunter type card. But when you get a second one on the table, and you're now double Fiend Huntering from your single sliver, they start to really add up.
We're always sort of looking for new ways to find interesting removal for Limited, and one of the coolest cards in the set for that and that purpose is Pillar of Light, which does something that White has kind of done before, but never quite in this manner. So we're usually seeing cards like Reprisal for White, which of course kills a creature with large power, and this time we've actually gone and trying out creatures with large toughness, which for White was the biggest problem in the set, was getting by all the creatures that really were very defensive.
One of White's problems is that it's 5th in card advantage, that it doesn't get to the cards as easily as the other colors. But we want to make a small army that's going to overrun the opponent. And so one of the tricks is finding ways to allow White to have access to that. And so one of the things we came up with is the idea of letting White regrow small white creatures so that it can't just get anything, but it can refill its army. And Return to the Ranks is a card that's doing exactly that function.
All right, so that's the white cards in Magic 2015 inside R&D. Much more, of course, as we head through the weekend. So what we want to do as the players sit down, gearing up for round 3, it's the last round of draft for the day. 5 rounds of standard will come up after lunch. Let me tell you what we've got coming your way at lunchtime. Do not miss the Hall of Fame announcement for 2014. We will let you know exactly who will get the ring later this year and who joins the great legends of the game in the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour Hall of Fame. That's with Brian David Marshall at lunchtime. We'll also have Randy Buehler bringing you an overview of standard, setting the scene for what's gone before and what might come in the future. So don't miss any of that. We have our All-Star Set Review Part 1, where you'll get Pro Tour champions, Hall of Famers, the greats of this season, coming into the news desk to talk about the M15 set. Show you, mark your card really, for what you might want to be doing at your next FNM, in your next draft, your next sealed, and so on. Why don't we take a look now, though, at our 2 feature pods that we started out the morning with, because the data's coming in, there's only 1 round to go, and there you see up on our giant board, feature pod, it was pod number 9, and Andrew Cuneo and Ken Yukihiro are going to be locked into battle, because as the 2 2-0s in that pod, they will face off against one another for the winner of the pod. Now, the 1-on-1s, 4 of these, as you would expect. We have Patrick Dickman, Sam Black, Ben Stark, and Alexa Talarov. Patrick Dickman on the Demons team right now. And then you have the Battle of the Basement, that's Sean Pottinger, who was the Honolulu PTQ winner, by the way. Not for Honolulu, but in Honolulu. And then Eduardo dos Santos Vieira from Brazil is at 0-2. Cuneo defeated Dickman last round in a big showdown. Then let's take a look at our other featured pod, and this, of course, was where we saw the big names. Look at that, just a huge slew of great names. At 2-0, it's Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa on Channel Fireball, the original Fireball team. Then you have Adam Koska in Team Lost in the Woods. He's from the Czech Republic. 2-0 right now. A lot of the Czechs and the Slovaks work together. I'm not sure whether they decided that Lost in the Woods would be their team name, but Koska will go up against De Rosa for the winner of that pod. Then at 1-on-1, you have Adrian Nestico, Willy Edel, who lost to Paulo last round, Alexander Hain, and well done to Atakan Yelevan. Yelevan is here in his first Premier event. Not only is this his first Pro Tour, he has never played a Grand Prix. So the Turk is 1-on-1 lifetime at Premier event play. Well done to him. And now he will face off against another 1-on-1, which means in the basement, Christina Smith and Kelvin Chu will go at it. Kelvin Chu, the leader in the Singapore World Magic Cup race, he leads Chapman Sim by 5 points. And Chapman Sim, who I know likes Kelvin very much, will nonetheless be quietly interested in seeing that the door may be a little bit ajar with Chu opening up 0-2. All right, so those are our 2 feature match pods, but what will be in the feature match this round? Let me tell you what is coming your way here in round 3. Well, first of all, we have a pair of 1-on-1s. We have Pierre Dajon, the runner-up of Pro Tour Theros, against Melissa de Toro, who was the top 8 of Pro Tour Gatecrash. Now, those are teammates. They've been testing for a week together, part of Team Revolution, of course, that did so well in Theros. So those two, one of those will start out 1-2. Then you have Josh McLean. He went toe-to-toe with Reed Duke. If Reed Duke wins or doesn't win Player of the Year, Josh McLean's 2 Grand Prix finals could have something to say about that. They each split at Miami and Detroit. 1-1-1, 1-1 the other. So McLean is up against Jacob Wilson. Now, Jacob Wilson, we said it's a very fast, limited format. I'm sort of slightly puzzled by this. Jacob Wilson has a draw, 1-0-1. So I'm not quite sure how he managed that. Be interested to see what deck he has. Frank Scarron is the king of the hill. He's up against the 2010 Team World Champion Robert Jurkovic. But we are going to begin with a modern master in Sam Pardee and a Grand Prix legend in Martin User. It's time for the final round of draft on day 1 of Pro Tour Magic 2015.